Good morning, everyone. I, Dr. A. Dhanalakshmi, Head Department of Economics, Kasturba Gandhi College for Women, would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Professor Nakula Reddy Garu, Principal Dr. Sunita Madam, Vice Principal Dr. Rajshri Madam, and my dear lecturers. I sincerely thank our Vice Principal, Dr. Rajshri Madam, for initiating the idea of conducting webinars in Kasturba Gandhi College for Women. I also thank the IQAC cell of Kasturba Gandhi College and organizing members of this webinar on the topic Post-Lockdown Effect of COVID-19 on Indian Economy. Before we start the webinar, I take the privilege to introduce our guest speaker for today's webinar. Professor Nakula Reddy Garu is teaching economics for PG students for more than 3 decades, and he served as Head Department of Economics, Osmania University, Board of Studies Chairman and other prestigious positions not only in OU but also in the state's academic field. He has written many informative articles in various national and international journals and also contributed in publishing many books for PG students. He also prepared study material for PG students of Professor Ramareddy Center for Distance Education, Osmania University. To extend learning beyond the classroom teaching, I invited Professor Nakula Reddy Garu to enlighten us on post-COVID-19 lockdown scenario on various sectors of Indian economy. He will also throw light on various economic reforms and packages announced by Government of India to revive the economic situation in the country. I would like to sincerely thank you, sir, once again for accepting our invitation in spite of your tight schedule and to speak before us today. Thank you. Now I'll hand over the mic to Professor Nakula Reddy Garu. Thank you.
And also free movement of people among the countries. These two are the basic reasons for rapid spread of this COVID virus among the countries. Now, as a result of this COVID virus, and in order to reduce its adverse consequences, now most of the countries in the world started lockdown. And before lockdown, now we come to India and take into account the pre-lockdown situation. Pre-lockdown in the sense, what I mean to say, before December 2019, when it surfaced in China, and it first case identified in India in March first week. So pre-lockdown situation, pre-corona situation, if you take into account the state of Indian economy, basically, even pre-corona situation also, the Indian economy, particularly the industrial sector, at the verge of collapse. The Indian economy and moving towards economic recession. There was slowdown of economic activity in Indian economy, and economists generally take into account the growth rates achieved by the economy the past 2 quarters or the 3 quarters in order to say whether the economy is prospering or moving towards economic recession or Great Depression. But by taking into account the growth rates, particularly of the manufacturing sector, industrial sector, if you take into account, these growth rates shown that they are moving towards x-axis, in the sense it is declining growth rates. So the declining growth rates in the Indian economy are clearly explicit shown that the economy is moving towards this economic recession. Now, what are the basic reasons for this economic recession or slowdown of economic activity, even prior to Corona, even prior to this lockdown? 2 or 3 reasons I can specify basically. These reasons are: 1, the announcement of demonetization on 8th November 2016. It is actually without taking any proper measures, in the sense proactive measures, the government announced this demonetization that crippled the economy, basically organized and also unorganized sector. And individuals are the people, they have money in their bank accounts but could not able to draw and spend. So spending is a must for any economic activity. When economy is moving towards downward movement or economic recession, then spending is a must. Spending is like antidose or antibiotic given to a patient. So when there is slowdown of economic activity, now under those conditions, actually the government has gone for the demonetization. And after that, in the name of economic reform and in the name of one tax, one nation, the government started implementing GST from July 1st, 2017. That also crippled the economy. And after that, you can see growing non-performing assets in the economy. Growing non-performing assets in the sense defaulters. 12 lakh crores nowadays, the banking sector proudly announcing that their non-performing assets reach to 12 lakh crores. It is a shame on the part of the banking sector, particularly nationalized banks. So they are proudly announcing their non-performing assets reach to 12 lakh crores. And actually, when compared to earlier situation, the percentage of non-performing assets decreased. They're proudly announcing, but it's not a good sign. And the next reason for this economic slowdown prior to this lockdown, actually, the failure of non-bank finance companies, NBFCs, infrastructure leasing and financial services company, where the government also as a stakeholder, it incurred 95,000 crores of non-performing assets are unable to receive that amount after extending loans. So these factors, actually the demonetization and implementation of GST, increasing non-performing assets and failure of non-bank finance companies actually led to the slowdown of the economy even prior to Corona, even prior to pre-lockdown situation. Now we'll come to the lockdown situation. So during this lockdown, why the government actually has gone for lockdown means actually, see, I will show you the slide, this one, to reduce the impact of Corona. Reduce the impact of Corona in the sense here, I think it is visible to all. On x-axis, here you can take number of days since the first case surfaced. Number of days we measured. And on this y-axis, daily number of cases. Daily number of cases registered. So this steep, this one you can see, this hill-like picture. This hill-like picture here, this is the result of pandemic outbreak without the intervention of the government. Without the intervention of the government, there will be rapid increase in number of cases within a short span of time. Already I stated, on x-axis, we are measuring number of days since the first case is surfaced. So by this time, for example, by 1 month, this might have reached to the peak level. Now a classic example of this is Italy, Spain, and also US. They failed to impose lockdown in the initial stages. They took lightly, nothing will happen, they stated, and they did not take any proactive measures in the form of lockdown. So without lockdown, without imposing lockdown, this is the situation. But whereas in India, if you take into account, we have imposed a lockdown. For that, we have to appreciate our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, and also at state level, we have to appreciate our Honorable Chief Minister KCR sir for taking proactive measures. So in case of imposing proactive measures in terms of lockdown, you can see the shape of the curve. So this is the curve which represents actually in case of pandemic outbreak with intervention. If government interferes in the form of lockdown, imposing lockdown, this is the situation in the sense it is possible to reduce the number of cases daily number of cases affected by Corona. Whereas in the absence of outbreak, the number of cases increases. See this gap, you can see these two curves. In the sense the curve without intervention, the curve with intervention, this gap, whatever is there, that is actually the difference that makes, in the sense with intervention and without intervention. So if you interfere in the economy and impose lockdown, to this extent it is possible to reduce the number of cases. Thereby it is possible to reduce the pressure on the existing health infrastructure. Why actually government wanted to go for imposing lockdown? Because it is not to eliminate coronavirus, but only thing is to contain coronavirus. Contain in the sense contain the spread of this disease and reduce the number of cases. So as a result, now a classic example is there throughout the world where the countries failed to impose lockdown. There actually the corona curve, this is actually, it is like Himalaya. So in the sense, steep rise in cases, whereas the countries where the lockdown is imposed, actually, you can say this type of to a smooth, somewhat normal curve. Somewhat, I am not saying this is entirely a normal curve, this is somewhat. So in the sense, the increase is greater extent, it is less when compared to countries where the lockdown has not imposed. And another the important thing in India, when the lockdown is imposed, already we have inherited economic slowdown. In the sense, we should not attribute this economic slowdown entirely to Corona. Even before Corona also, the economy, actually the economic activity moving towards recession. So by the time when the Corona surfaced in India, and also by the time the government imposed lockdown, we inherited an economic situation where it is nothing but economic recession. So our manufacturing sector started registering minus growth rates also in some quarters, and 1% or 2% growth rate. That kind of situation we inherited at the time of Corona. And after that, the government imposed a lockdown. And already I stated why the government imposed the lockdown means basically to contain and not to eliminate totally. No one now able to eliminate, not only Indian government, you can take into account any government or any country. It is they already raised their hands stating that it is not possible to eliminate Corona in near future. We have to live with Corona. Everybody started a chorus. We have to live with Corona. We have to live with Corona, so that you have to adjust yourself. You have to practice so many things. So that is the situation now. So you forget about elimination of Corona, but only thing is you have to take into account containment. So for containing the Corona effect and number of cases, the government imposed lockdown. Now, what is the situation during the lockdown? Basically, industrial sector, for example, if you take into account, it is something like hibernation. Hibernation in the sense, for the last 6 weeks, you take into account. Now, no industrial activity in India. All industries closed down except essential commodities and also the necessary goods. For example, the food supplies, okay, and medicines, etc. Okay, all other industries closed down their production operations. So what I mean to say is all industries are in hibernation. Now we move to the impact of this lockdown. First of all, post-lockdown, in the sense pre-lockdown situation, if you take into account, basically, if you take into account the lockdown, our agriculture sector to a large extent not affected by the lockdown. Sector-wise, if you take into account, agriculture sector not affected actually as a result of lockdown, because by the time that the government imposed lockdown, the Kharif Rabi season also completed, Rabi season, and as a result, most part of the agriculture unaffected by this lockdown. But certain segment or sub-segment of this agriculture sector, particularly the plantation crops and also floriculture, affected by this lockdown. The plantation crops, particularly mango cultivation, mangoes you take into account, flowers you take into account, these farmers actually suffered a lot as a result of lack of transportation facility, lack of market for these products, domestic as well as international market. So they suffered a lot. But what I can say, major part of this agriculture sector unaffected. But one problem, the rural economy actually suffering. That problem is inward migration of workers from urban areas to rural areas. It is like a tsunami-like situation in rural areas, where lakhs of migrant population, migrant workers from urban areas, they started moving to their native places. Now they are putting pressure on rural areas, where the rural economy may not absorb all these migrant workers who moved from urban areas to rural areas. As a result, what happens in rural areas, basically there will be a problem in a short span of time, where the rural economy cannot absorb all this workforce migrated from urban to rural areas. And at the same time, already rural population, rural workers are there. As a result, the rural economy cannot absorb even MGNREGA program also, where these migrant workers may not get employment, because even to get employment under MGNREGA, they want that ration card or Aadhaar card, etc. Where these migrant workers actually, they have their Aadhaar card or the ration card with the address of urban areas, so that there will be a problem. So what I mean to say, a major part of the agricultural activities or agriculture sector unaffected by the lockdown, but the subsegment of agriculture, particularly the plantations, for example, mangoes, flowers, and also fisheries, for example, to a certain extent affected by this lockdown. But the rural economy unexpectedly suffered an injury in terms of movement of migrant workers from urban areas to these rural areas. And in the same way, during the lockdown period, the industrial sector, already I stated, it is actually in hibernation and coma-like situation and closed all production operations. And another thing is the service sector, if you take into account, the software sector not affected by this lockdown. They shifted their operations to work from home so that they continued their operations. But other sectors actually, particularly tourism and also transport, hospitality, restaurants, health services, all these sectors affected by the lockdown. So in the sense, during the period of lockdown, agriculture unaffected, whereas industrial sector totally affected, and service sector to a certain extent affected. The software not affected, whereas other services actually affected by the lockdown. Now we'll turn our attention to understand the effect of this post-lockdown or the state of Indian economy after the lockdown. If the lockdown is, for example, lifted. Now, what I can say basically, if the government lift the lockdown, maybe, for example, 17th onwards, but the third lockdown, 3.0, it is up to May 17th. But yesterday, our Honorable Prime Minister, day before yesterday, stated that they are going to increase the lockdown period. They want to move to 4.0, 1.0 over, 2.0 over, 3.0 is going to be by 17th. And after that also they want to increase the lockdown period. Now, the question is, they want to increase the lockdown period, but they say on the one hand there is lockdown, on the other hand, they allowed most of the operations in the Indian economy. They allowed earlier also the lockdown not applicable to the agriculture sector, even the first 1.0 also not applicable. There is no lockdown in rural areas. And second lockdown also not applicable. All these lockdowns, 1, 2, and partially the 3 applicable to industry and service sector. But during the third lockdown period, the government actually, taking into account the economic situation, they allowed the operations of industrial sector to continue. Now, in such a situation, actually, where is the lockdown now? In the sense that government actually lifted lockdown to a maximum extent. So when the government lifted the lockdown, and immediately what I can say, the industrial sector or the manufacturing sector cannot conduct its operations in a smooth manner. In the sense, economy cannot run in a smooth manner. There are so many obstacles in the process. So what are these obstacles with respect to agriculture sector or primary sector, with respect to industry or secondary sector, with respect to tertiary sector? We shall try to visualize. Now take into account, our economy is basically divided into 3 broad sectors. One is primary sector, and second one is secondary sector, third one is the tertiary sector. Now we take into account the state of this primary sector post-lockdown. Now let us say primary sector means basically it consists of agriculture is the predominant sector in primary sector, and within agriculture take into account food grains and also vegetables and plantation crops, flowers, And these crops, if you take into account, already in pre-lockdown situation or during the lockdown situation also, the food grain sector not affected, the agriculture not affected, and vegetables not affected. But only thing is, what are the sectors affected during the pre-lockdown period or lockdown period? Plantation crops and floriculture. And these crops actually affected in terms of marketing. Marketing in the sense, take into account your plantation crops and flowers. These crops actually, these farmers not only place their product domestically, but also in international market. Our mangoes are famous in international market. Our flowers are famous in international market. So mangoes, if you take into account, we are the first in the world. For China, next, we are the first. 48% of mangoes internationally available, they are Indian origin. In the sense, now our farmers cannot export as a result of barriers imposed by all the countries. As a result of Corona, they closed their boundaries. So they closed the trade relations. So how to export the commodity? How to export these mangoes to other countries? Now only alternative available to us is the domestic market. And domestic market also, prior to last 10 days, there were obstacles and government interfered in the market, and somehow our farmers able to export our commodities domestically from local areas to urban areas. So these problems are basically related to plantation crops and not related to food grains. And fisheries also, this sector also facing a problem because our fisheries, actually our aquaculture, take into account, our aquaculture farmers export the commodity internationally. Particularly shrimp, if you take into account, our farmers export a lot. But there is no international market. Now these farmers have to contend with only local market. And there are no problems regarding this forestry and also animal husbandry. So in the sense, what I mean to say, after post-lockdown, after the lockdown, this primary sector will continue as it is, as in the case of pre-lockdown or lockdown period, because this primary sector not affected much by the lockdown. Only, I repeat, this plantation crops cultivation, these farmers affected by the lockdown. And next, if you take into account the growth rate of agriculture, this is 2.8% in 1920. I am sure the same growth rate are now in next year. If you take into account 2021, this growth rate of agriculture may be more than 2.8% because of good harvest received by the farmers. The food grains output, according to second advance estimate, 292 million tons in 1920, a record actually. This may be more by taking into account the Rabi harvest also. In the sense, what I mean to say finally, there is a bright future for agriculture even in the presence of Corona. Whether lockdown or no lockdown, it is not applicable to this primary sector to a great extent. But only problem with respect to the primary sector is it is the inward migration or the reverse migration, what I mean to say. Lakhs of people, lakhs of workers migrated from rural areas to urban areas where some 10 years back, 15 years back, 5 years back, they migrated from rural to urban. But the situation is quite reverse. They started moving from urban to rural areas in search of livelihood there. But they migrated from rural to urban some time back in search of livelihood in urban areas. But as a result of Corona, most of the migrant workers, they lost their livelihood. Mostly they work in unorganized activities. As a result, they lost their livelihood and they started moving to their native places. And this is really a burden. On the rural economy. This kind of situation we have witnessed during the British period, colonial period, where as a result of destruction of our handicrafts industry, handlooms industry, people migrated from urban areas to rural areas in that period, colonial period. So that was called as progressive ruralization. But the same thing is happening. But here it is not the destruction of the industry, or destruction of some other thing because of corona, because of the fear of corona. They are thinking that the industrial activity may not be started in near future, so they cannot survive here, so that they want to move. Maybe the attachment they have with their native places, they started moving to rural areas, and this puts a great burden on rural areas. Now the government has to initiate measures actually in order to protect the interest of migrant population moved from urban areas to rural areas. And this corona and also lockdown, if you take into account with respect to this primary sector, it posed challenges. It posed challenges in the sense now, the challenges related to agriculture sector during the period of this lockdown, farmers unable to place their commodity in the markets. At the same time, they fail to store their commodity without losing quality. In the sense, when there is no market, there should be a way to store the commodity without losing the quality. But you all know that except paddy or wheat, most of the agricultural products are perishable in nature. Fruits, if you take into account, you can store for 10 days or 15 days, not 2 months or 3 months or 1 year. Now, if there is no market for such products, actually, what to do? Actually, the farmers have to incur loss. Now, it is a challenge on the part of the government. Now, government, actually, corona is an eye-opener for the government. See, these are the problems which are there in your economy. You have to pull up your socks. You have to improve your agriculture infrastructure, particularly in terms of not only providing irrigation facility, but also at the same time, you have to provide adequate storage facility and also marketing facility. So now the government actually has taken this challenge in a sportive manner, and it wants to go for establishing or providing storage facilities to the farmers, and also at the same time marketing facilities, innovative marketing facilities. Why I would like to call it as innovative marketing? Now particularly our state government started online marketing of agricultural products. Now the government itself, state government itself, procuring these plantation crops from the farmers and placing these fruits at the doorsteps of the consumers through online. This is an innovative marketing strategy never we have seen in history. So the corona actually is an eye opener for the governments, and they started feeling some kind of difficulty in the sense they came to the realization that whatever the infrastructure is there in agriculture sector, it is not adequate. Now you have to pull up your socks and you have to initiate measures to improve the agricultural infrastructure, so that in future, I am sure that the government will invest more on providing not only irrigation facility, but also at the same time, the storage facilities, maybe cold storage, and also at the same time, the marketing facilities. So once the government will provide marketing and also storage facilities, our agriculture will prosper without any limit. Now, we turn our attention towards understanding the state of this secondary sector post-lockdown. And already stated, prior to COVID-19, this secondary sector started moving towards economic recession, and it was in hibernation during the lockdown period. Now, in third lockdown period, of course, third lockdown is there up to May 17th, but the government last week itself allowed the industrial units to continue their production operations. So this large scale manufacturing sector, you can take into account. This micro, small and medium enterprises can take into account, and construction activity. First, we take into account large scale manufacturing, the state of large scale manufacturing post-lockdown. So the government allowed these industrial units to open their production operations or to continue their production operations. It is not possible for them to continue the production operations in a smooth manner. Why? The basic reason is there is actually cut off this supply chain, breakdown of the supply chain. So what is this supply chain? Basically, for that I will show you first. The supply chain, take into account, here four-wheeler industry is there, Hyundai company is manufacturing four-wheelers, but it requires so many inputs, what I can say, spare parts from other suppliers, where don't think that the Hyundai company will manufacture all the spare parts required for assembling a four-wheeler. No, maybe the Hyundai company or any other manufacturing company will manufacture only the final engine and all it procure from other suppliers and assemble it. Now during the lockdown period, what happened actually, there is a cutoff of supply chain, in the sense that there is no link between the manufacturer and the suppliers of inputs, or you can say ancillary industries. These are all. Now four-wheelers, if you take into account, it requires a clutch, it requires brake wire, it requires glass, windows for example, or front glass or the rear glass, and air conditioners it requires, lights for example, rear camera for example, audio system, tires, air balloon, seats, battery. Do you think that Hyundai company car, for example, if you buy, do you think these tires are from Hyundai company? The battery from Hyundai company? No. This may be MRF or Bridgestone or some other. And this may be some other XYZ battery, Samran or some other. The rear cameras may be from different companies, not Hyundai, I'm sure. The ACs may be Blue Star or LG or some other thing. Lights may be some other company. Glass may be some other company. Brake wire may be some other. Clutch. So this is the supply chain. Supply chain in the sense, a manufacturer, final producer, if you take into account, the final producer produced the final commodity where they can place at the doorstep of the consumer. A consumer can use this commodity. So as a final consumer, we always look at the four-wheeler, the shape of this car. Inbuilt, if you take into account, these all spare parts you can find. But all these spare parts not manufactured by the Hyundai company or some other Tata or some other XYZ company, BMW, etc. So they procure these inputs or spare parts from other suppliers and they assemble the commodity and finally they will deliver this commodity. So in the sense, what I mean to say, earlier if you take into account, before lockdown situation, all this was a smooth process in the sense the four-wheeler company could able to procure without any problem all these inputs are the spare parts: clutch, brake, glass, air conditioners, light, rear camera, audio, tires, air balloons, seats, battery, and assemble this commodity and place this commodity at the doorstep of the consumer. Now there is a breakdown of supply chain with respect to all these industries, large scale manufacturers, micro, small, medium enterprises, and also construction activity. So I gave the example of a large scale manufacturer. Take into account construction activity. What is the supply chain here? Now let us take a builder constructed a house, but this house requires so many inputs. It requires cement, it requires iron and steel, it requires brick, it requires this, for example, gravel, it requires tiles, for example, it requires marble, it requires wood, but it requires so many other inputs. Now there is no connection. So this supply chain totally broke down, and there is no link between the final manufacturer and the supplier. Because here again, I will go back to this one. Here the final manufacturer, their four-wheeler company, but here if four-wheeler company want this clutch, the suppliers of clutch cannot supply these clutches immediately, because most of the workforce in these organizations left the places and they closed their production operations. They cannot run the machinery immediately because the machinery also requires some repairs. We have seen what happened if you suddenly on the machinery. What happens? We have seen a classic example: Vishaka gas leak, Sterile gas leak. That is in the sense without trial run. If you go for starting the company immediately in order to meet the demand, these things do happen. In the sense, the ancillary industry people also not able to supply the commodity. They want, see, These are the spare parts. All these are the spare parts for this four-wheeler. But these people also require inputs from some other suppliers. That is the chain. But the supply chain actually broke down. So as a result, even if the government allows industrial units to run their production operation, it is not possible. It is something like a patient actually discharged from hospital. In the sense, post-lockdown or lifting lockdown means economy is during the lockdown period, it is on hospital bed, and post-lockdown means discharge. These industrial units actually discharged from hospital, given freedom. So even though the government has given freedom, even though the government allowed these industrial units to run or continue their production operations, within a short span, it is not possible for them to continue their production operations without any obstacle. They cannot continue because they have to initiate measures to procure all those raw materials, and raw material suppliers, again, they have to initiate measures to procure raw materials from others. So in such a situation, the large scale manufacturing, micro, small and medium enterprises and construction industry cannot conduct its operations in a smooth manner. It requires time. It is like a person discharged from hospital requires some time to recover. After 10 days or 15 days or 20 days or 1 month, the person can walk properly. So in the same way, the large scale industry, particularly it was in hibernation for the last 45 minutes, closed all production activities, and immediately if you allow these large scale manufacturing units to continue, they cannot continue. It requires some time. In the same way, micro, small and medium enterprises also, they cannot continue their production operations. They are also facing the problem of supply chain. And construction activity also facing the same problem. They are not able to get sand, they are not able to get cement, they are not able to get iron and steel. And in addition to that, the basic problem here is workforce. You cannot see construction activity and the workforce separately. They are interdependent. In the sense they are complementary. What I mean to say, without workers, you cannot do anything with the availability of other inputs. So even if other inputs are there, without workers, you cannot continue the construction activity. So these are what I can say. These are two inseparable. You cannot separate construction activity and the workforce. So this construction activity also suffering the same problem. In addition to availability of raw material or inputs, etc., workers problem also there. So within a short span, it is not possible to see any smooth flow of commodities from this large scale manufacturing and also micro, small and medium enterprises and construction activity. So post-lockdown situation, this is the post-lockdown situation actually, and there is a need for revival of this micro, small and medium enterprises and also large scale manufacturing. They are crying for help actually from the government. Already they are suffering from low level of economic activity. These industries, particularly the large scale manufacturing, if you take into account, they accumulated inventory, particularly automobiles, if you take into account, all companies, automobile companies accumulated inventory, finished product before the lockdown itself. Now this inventory they want to dispose of first. So they want market for their product. The government has to help this large scale manufacturing and also the micro, small and medium enterprises. Then only the large scale industry and also MSME sector can flourish. Otherwise, there is no future. In the sense, government must initiate measures, support to measures to protect the large scale and also MSME sector. MSME sector is the worst victim. So during the pre-corona period, if you take into account, the industry, large scale MSME, they are in a worse situation. They moved from worst to worst during the lockdown period. So now actually they are like on the hospital bed. Now, some support the government must extend some support in order to protect the large scale industry and also MSME and also the construction sector. And already I explained the supply chain. Now, also, when the government allowed these large scale and also MSME industries to continue their production operations, immediately if you conduct the production operations without any trial run, it leads to breakage and also accidents. You can see in Visakhapatnam what happened. We know yesterday what happened in Medak district. In some industry, boiler exploded and 2 laborers actually died on the spot. So in the sense, these two things do happen, so that in the post-lockdown period, the managements must be very careful in starting the industrial units, and also at the same time, it is better to go for trial run. Trial run, then only they can conduct the production operations in a continuous basis. And another problem after the post-lockdown is inadequate demand. And the large scale and MSME sector actually, today also, I stated, they are suffering from inadequate demand. They accumulated inventory. Now, measures required to support these industrial units in order to sell their product or place their product in the market. And if you take into account the growth rate of industrial sector in pre-corona or pre-lockdown period, only our industrial sector could able to achieve only 2% growth rate. 2%. This is less than expected growth rate of 6.5%. 6.5%. So that itself shows that the health of the industrial sector is not on the expected lines. So some medicine, some support measures, some initiative is required from the government in order to help the industrial sector. So further, there is need for restoration of supply chain. In the sense, what I mean to say, on the one side, the government must initiate measures to increase the demand, and at the same time, must initiate measures to restore the supply chain. Supply chain in the sense by filling the gaps in the supply chain, maybe by providing incentives or supporting measures, etc. It has to restore the supply chain. Then only, on the one hand, the demand will move upwards, and at the same time, in order to meet the increase in demand, the supply also will increase in a smooth fashion. Otherwise, if government fail to initiate measures to restore the supply chain, you cannot smooth increase in supply in near future. And at the same time, as a result of measures initiated by the government, the demand may increase. It results in inflation. In the sense, what I mean to say, side by side, the government must initiate measures to increase the demand in the economy, and also at the same time, the government initiate measures to restore the supply chain. So these two must move side by side. And next thing is challenges and also opportunities. What are the challenges actually the industrial sector or the secondary sector faced during the lockdown period and also as a result of corona? The challenge is actually we fail to support our population with our domestic production. That came to the realization. The government also realized that fact. Even during the corona period, we started importing the test kits from China. That shows it is basically a defect in our economy or economic policy. 130 crore population, if you depend on other countries, they may take advantage. You have to mortgage your economic sovereignty at the doorsteps of other countries if you depend on other countries. What is required actually? You have to be self-sufficient. You have to be self-reliant. You should not depend on other countries for essential goods or necessary goods. So Corona actually taught us so many lessons. So far we neglected, so far we ignored, stating that, oh, ours is a great economy, we could face any challenge. But Corona is an eye-opener, where during the Corona period, actually, we started importing kits from China. The China itself exported Corona kits. Of course, there are defects in Corona kits, and ICMR started saying you should not use these Corona kits, there are defects. That is entirely different thing. But we started importing the Corona kits from China. So this is not good. This is a challenge actually. Now, what is the opportunity? Now, India has great potential, human resources are there, infrastructure is there, and also technical experts are there, scientists are there, doctors are there, economists are there, human resources. See, we are second to none. We are first in the world. So now you have to initiate measures in order to develop industry within the country. And also at the same time, you have to invite, you have to attract foreign investment or whatever the industries which want to come out of the China. Now, as a result of trade war between China and the US, most of the multinational companies, they want to move out of China, Now, and they are looking for markets. So there is plenty of market in India. So now if you are able to attract those companies, they are called as what I can say in cricket, retired heart. They are called as these industries, whatever the industries which they want to move out of China as a result of trade war between China and the US, these industries are called as retired heart industries. So if you are able to attract these retired heart industries by providing sufficient infrastructure, adequate infrastructure and good governance, corruption-free governance, etc., then it is possible to develop our economy and move forward. And also in near future, we can compete with other developed economies in the world in any area. This is an opportunity so far we ignored. In the sense the corona on the one side created so many problems, but at the same time it provided opportunities also. So learned people usually say, opportunities will not wait for anyone. If opportunity comes, you should be able to grab it. So now since there is an opportunity, there are so many companies which want to move out of China. Now you should be able to grab them with two hands by providing sufficient infrastructure, good governance and flexible policies, etc. Then there is a bright future for the Indian economy. And next we will move to software services. Now software sector, if you take into account, service sector, if you take into account, third sector, service sector. So service sector, take into account software services. See, whether the corona or no corona or lockdown or no lockdown, software services not affected to a great extent because these companies shifted to work from home. So they are continuing their operations without any obstacle. But within service sector, there are other areas which are affected. These are tourism, transport, hospitality, restaurants, trade, health services, education. First, take into account tourism. Tourism is the most affected. Nowadays, for example, take any tourist place within state or within country, for example, nobody would like to visit Taj Mahal. Nobody would like to visit Ajanta Ellora. Nobody would like to visit our Charminar. Nobody would like to visit Papikondalu. In the sense, why? Because tourist temple towns also, you can say nobody would like to visit. Because tourist places means you can see congregation of thousands of people. So groups of people. So congregation leads to the spread of virus. Everybody is thinking. So everybody is afraid of this thing. As a result, though inherently in your mind you want to visit some temple town or some other tourist place, you want to postpone it. No, wait and watch. We will see in near future or after 1 year, after 2 years, we may visit if the conditions will become smooth or normal. So everybody is thinking in such a way, and also government also not allowing groups, congregation, and as a result, the tourism sector affected a lot, and people earning livelihood from this tourism sector lost their livelihood. Now they are on the road. In the same way, transport, you forget about public transport. Take into account private transport, particularly cab services in urban areas. For the last few years, it has become a fashion to hire a cab, Ola or Uber or something. And also, if not, hiring an auto. So now what about the future of this transport services, Ola, Uber or autos? No possibility in near future, and they lost their livelihood. In the same way, hospitality sector. Hospitality in the sense hotels, for example. Hotels. See, these two are interlinked. Tourism and hospitality are interlinked. When tourism flourishes or prosper, you can see the demand for hospitality also. Hospitality nowadays, as per the reports, even in US and most states not imposed lockdown, occupancy ratio only 20%. 80% rooms are vacant in US, even in the absence of lockdown. Freedom, complete freedom. But in our country, the government imposed lockdown and closed these activities. Now you can imagine the occupancy ratio of the hotels, rooms particularly, maybe not even 1%. There you can say houseflies and also mosquitoes and not the travelers or the tourists, particularly in hospitals. And also restaurants. Now all those who want to have their food of different varieties, now they have to postpone the desire at least for certain time period. Now there is no guarantee that the government will allow these restaurants in near future. Though it gave permission to some other area, what I mean to say alcohol, now they closed. They have not given permission to open the restaurants and food suppliers basically. Now the people living, getting livelihood by working in restaurants also lost their livelihood. And trade also affected. Trade you can take into account exports, no exports nowadays. All countries closed their boundaries actually. Now where is the question of exporting the commodity? The people are earning livelihood by working in export agencies, etc. They lost their livelihood. And health services also, most of the hospitals desert. Now you can see there is a desert look. No patients, nothing at all. It's a surprising thing for the last 45 to 50 days. No patients, nobody is visiting hospitals. What happened to all those diseases? The diagnostic centers closed their activities. But earlier, hundreds, thousands thronged to hospitals, particularly corporate hospitals and diagnostic centers, etc. And some cases you can see long queues to have your turn in hospitals and also diagnostic centers. Now what happened, we don't know. But this sector also suffered a loss, health sector. And all those people working in these sectors, particularly unorganized, daily workers, for example, etc., contract basis, they lost their livelihood. And take into account, education also suffered a lot. Education suffered a lot in the sense, though we are conducting online classes, online webinars, etc. What I mean to say, we are missing face-to-face interaction. Face-to-face interaction in the sense classroom teaching, where a teacher used to observe while delivering a lecture, use it to observe the students and also use it to interact with the students. The students also can interact with the teacher, that is face-to-face interaction, a traditional mode of teaching, for example, where chalk paste and also blackboard or your marker or whiteboard, etc. LCD PowerPoints may be some cases, but we are missing that one. So education sector also suffered a lot as a result of this corona. Our calendar, conduct of examinations and conduct of classes, conduct of seminars for exam purpose, etc. Now postponed, and there is no guarantee when they conduct those examinations, etc. But what I mean to say, this online teaching, though we are conducting online classes and we have started online teaching, as far as I know, it is subject to correction. It is not a perfect alternative to face-to-face interaction. In the sense, traditional mode. And as a result, you can see the UGC committee also stated the same thing. Kuhad committee appointed by the UGC during the corona period to examine the conduct of examinations and other activities in universities. It also stated only 25% online content and 70% offline content. Clearly stated, and it pinpointed the defects in online teaching. Now, entertainment activity also came to a standstill. Even if you want to watch a movie in IMAX theater, it is not possible. Only you have to sit with your TVs or some other online technology in order to watch the movies. So thousands of persons, thousands of workers in movie industry actually lost their livelihood. And unorganized services, if you take into account, for example, this hair salons, beauty parlors, and also event managers, fitness centers, coaching centers, whoever working in those areas, they lost their livelihood. Particularly now, government in near future will not allow these hair cutting salons. Last day we have seen in newspapers, one person actually, as a result of one person, the coronavirus spread to some 25 people or 26 people through hair cutting. So that it is a dangerous activity according to government. Though, but the government is allowing the alcohol sales, and you can see a serpentine queues where in famous temple towns you can see, in order to see a god, you can see kilometer or 2 kilometer queues, but the same queues you can see in front of alcohol shops. Maybe alcohol is a much more god than our traditional god. So this organized services, if you take into account, in near future, the people may not get employment in these areas. And sarcastically, yesterday I have seen in one forward message that how to cut your hair on your own. In the sense, now people started cutting their hair on their own because of this problem. And the post-lockdown situation, if you take into account, there may not be any improvement in this service sector. Particularly, following sectors may shift to online mode. What is this online mode? Health, if you take into account, telemedicine and online medicine. So for that, you have to pay initially through Paytm or some other mode. And once you pay and doctor confirms that payment, then only he will diagnose. And education, already I stated, we have started. We have moved to this online mode. Of course, today's webinar is a classic example of shifting to online mode. And restaurants also, they move to online mode. For example, Swiggy and some other online suppliers, they will, and also other hotels, also reputed hotels, they may start providing food supplies through online mode. Now, after evaluating what I mean. What happened? There is technical problem. Happened. Yep. So general observations you can take into account after evaluating all. Now, see, general observations, corona, lockdown, and also post-lockdown. Take into account. And this actually, corona added new attributes. New attributes in the sense, now let us say, we started maintaining physical distance, using masks, and also no handshake. And we started actually washing our hands frequently. And we started online lectures, online teaching, etc. These are the new attributes actually. Earlier, we never followed physical distance. In colleges, universities, and schools, you can see friends usually move along the corridors, having hands on each other's shoulders. Now it is not possible. They have to maintain the physical distance, and then you have to use mask. Like you have to, we usually carry a cell phone nowadays. But in addition to cell phone, now you have to carry a mask also. These are the new attributes actually we learned from the effect of corona. And another thing is the sanitizer industry will flourish in near future. Sanitizer industry, particularly hand wash, for example, if you take into account, there is a lot of demand for sanitizer. Earlier, if you take into account, very few people used sanitizers or disinfectants, etc., etc. But now there is a bright future for the sanitizer industry. And in the same way, in-migrant workers a burden on the rural economy. Already I stated that workers migrated from urban areas to rural areas, and now it is very difficult to get them back actually. And at the same time, they pose a problem there because the economy cannot absorb all this population, all this additional workforce, and as a result, these workers who migrated from urban areas to rural areas may pose a problem. And difficult to fill holes in supply chain. Already I stated, there is breakage of supply chain totally broke down, and now it is the responsibility of the government to fill the holes in the sense it has to connect the different suppliers. Have shown the supply chain by taking a four-wheeler, and the four-wheeler manufacturer requires different inputs from different sources. Now it is the government has to initiate in order to fill the gaps. Then only the supply will move in a smooth manner. And it is difficult to bring back migrant workers from rural areas, at least in the short run, because they may not come back. You can see there is a fear in the minds of the migrant workers who migrated from urban areas to rural areas. They are suffering from fear psychosis. So in the sense, even if they move from rural areas to urban areas, there won't be any work in the near future. There may be difficulties because of the corona. So it is the responsibility of the stakeholders to clear, to wipe out all such fear from the minds of the workers. Then only they will come back. They hesitate to come back from their native places. And at the same time, people spend less in post-lockdown period. In near future, you can see people spend less. If they get some amount, they will think twice to spend that amount. In the sense, only if it is necessary, they will buy. Otherwise, they will postpone that. Why? After some time, we will buy this product. It is not necessary now itself. It is an addition to the existing one. So that they try to postpone. What happens tomorrow? We don't know whether we get the same amount of income tomorrow or not. All these things that creeps the minds of individuals so that they will spend less. Whatever the income they earn little income only when compared to earlier situation. They will get less than what we earned earlier. So out of that also they will spend less. And dual role of the government. What is this dual role basically? On the one hand, the government initiate measures to increase the demand in the market. It has to activate. It is something like a doctor has to give, for example, antibiotics to a patient. And at the same time, this is one side, it is increasing the demand. In the sense, the government has to increase the demand. And at the same time, the doctor must say these antibiotics must not damage the patient. In the sense, the increase in demand should not lead to inflation. So for that, what is required actually, the government must initiate measures to increase the supply by filling the holes in supply chain. This is the dual role, what I mean to say. The government not only increasing the demand for the commodity with its initiatives, with its measures, but also it has to initiate measures to fill the gaps in supply chain and encourage the industrial units to supply more and place the commodity in the market. In state of the health sector, now actually the corona has taught us a lesson to the central government as well as the state government. In the sense, when you introspect into the health infrastructure, you are nowhere. Now you are pulling up your socks in order to increase the health infrastructure. You want to go for establishing, increasing the beds, etc., etc. But this is not the thing actually. You have to initiate measures to increase health infrastructure in order to face any eventuality. Suppose if America-like situation arises in India also, America could not able to face that situation. Then what about India? Fortunately, we imposed our Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, with a visualization or with a future forecast, could able to impose lockdown so that we could able to postpone the number of cases. So that saved the Indian economy actually. Otherwise, you have to face a lot of severe situation in the Indian economy. So what is required now actually, you have to initiate measures to increase health infrastructure, maybe in terms of doctors, maybe in terms of nurses, maybe in terms of other infrastructure, hospitals, beds, etc., etc. Then only we will be safe. Otherwise, there is a great danger. And also at the same time, the doctors and scientists also warning that we have not reached the peak. The peak will be in July. Peak will be in July as far as corona is concerned, the number of cases. So by that time, the government has to initiate measures to see that there is adequate health infrastructure in the economy. And now we take into account measures initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister and also Honorable Finance Minister. Now, day before yesterday, our Honorable Prime Minister announced a bailout package of 20 lakh crores. I repeat, 20 lakh crores bailout package. It is 10% of our GDP. Our GDP is 200 lakh crores. 200 lakh crores our GDP. So out of that, government announced, Prime Minister sir announced 20 lakhs as a bailout package to all these units actually, all those stakeholders. He also emphasized that there are 4 basic pillars in the Indian economy. On that, he would like to have a self-reliant economy. Self-reliant economy, he stated, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan in the sense, self-reliant India mission. Self-reliant India Commission. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. In the sense, the government wanted to have self-reliance actually. Self-reliance. So for that he stated, there are 4 pillars. There are 4 pillars for building a self-reliance strong building. What are these 5 pillars? I am sorry, there are 5 pillars. These 5 pillars are: 1, economy; another one, infrastructure; another one, a system, technologically driven system where we have strong human resource, where our scientists, doctors, engineers could able to use the technology, advanced technology. And 4th one is demography. Demographic dividend is there in our country. 65% of the population under the age of 35 years. No country in the world has this advantage. So they want to use the 65% of this population below 35 years. They want to use it for the growth of the economy. And 5th one is the demand driven. There is a lot of demand for the economy in this country. So the aim of the government nowadays onwards, already I stated the opportunities they realized from corona. The opportunity is how to go for self-reliant economy. For that, there are 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, and also technology. The system is there where engineers, doctors, scientists can use the advanced technology. There is demographic dividend and also the demand for the market. So all these 5 pillars, on that they want to construct a strong building. That building is self-reliant building in order to face the challenges. He also stated that we have to first of all produce goods for the local markets. It is more vocal about local. Vocal about local in our Honorable Prime Minister's speech. So local in the sense you have to produce goods for the local market first. In the sense we should not depend on other countries. We have to produce our commodities on our own. That indicates the local message indicates their objective of achieving self-sufficiency. First, we have to feed our population with our products only, domestic production. After that, we can go for international market. In the sense, local brands will become international brands. He also stated some brands were earlier in other countries only local brands. After that, they became international brands. Now, the aim of the government is to do the same thing. First, you serve the local market by producing, by taking into account local needs. And after that, after satisfying the local demand, you can go for international market and establish in the international market. So, Prime Minister's address basically related to under Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, establish build a self-reliant strong economy. To that purpose, Prime Minister announced 20 lakh crores bailout package. The details of that bailout package announced by our Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman yesterday evening by conducting press meet. So, out of the 20 lakh crores, they wanted to allocate to different sectors. But here, one thing we should keep in mind: the 20 lakh crores, it is not from now onwards they are spending. But already during the first lockdown period, the government of India announced 1.70 lakh crores as a bailout package. 1.70 lakh crores bailout package in the first round of lockdown. And in the second round of lockdown, the Reserve Bank of India governor announced they wanted to go for increasing the liquidity in Indian economy to the extent of 3.2% of GDP. 3.2% of GDP means, already I stated our GDP is 200 lakh crores. 200 lakh crores, and 3.2% of GDP means it is 6.40 lakh crores. So the Reserve Bank of India wanted to infuse liquidity to the extent of 6.40 lakh crores, that is 3.2% of GDP. And at the same time, another press meet, the Reserve Bank of India governor stated that they want to provide 50,000 crores to mutual funds. Not all mutual funds, the mutual funds which deal in debt instruments, which invest in government bonds and securities. Because in order to revive the stock market, see, during the second lockdown period, if you evaluate the stock market, the Bombay Stock Index moved from 42,000 to 27,000, and millions of investors lost lakhs of crores. Because there's a fall in stock index from 42,000 to 27,000 means 15,000 fall in stock index. That is equal to billions of lakhs of crores. So, in order to protect the stock market, Reserve Bank of India governor announced 50,000 crores towards mutual funds to invest in stock market, that too in particularly the debt market. Because there was a fear. Franklin Templeton, actually a mutual fund which deals in basically the debt instruments, they started closing 6 schemes actually, that resulted in wholesale selling of debt instruments in stock market, that led to fear psychosis. So in order to stop that, actually the Reserve Bank of India actually entered the market and announced 50,000 crores towards helping mutual funds, particularly with dealing. And at the same time, the government, Reserve Bank of India, announced 25,000 crores to non-bank financial institutions and also NABARD. And further, 10,000 crores also the government announced to housing finance, bank. And now yesterday, our Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced that 20 lakh crores, the distribution. Out of this 20 lakh crores, 3 lakh crores actually, our concentration now actually is on MSME. They want to revive the MSME sector. 3 lakh crores loan they want to provide to this MSME sector, and 20,000 crores towards NPS in MSME sector, and also the definitional changes in micro units from 25 lakhs to 5 crore manufacturing and also services. And there are so many measures they announced related to EPF, Employees Provident Fund, and real estate, and also contracting, etc., etc. So their objective yesterday, our finance minister announced bailout package out of 20 lakh crores to the extent of 6.7 lakh crores. Her emphasis, the main emphasis is on basically MSME sector. So now, whatever may be the case, the government also taking measures to in order to protect the industry and also other stakeholders by announcing bailout packages. But one thing we should keep in mind, this bailout package is 10% of our GDP and around 8% of the currency supply in India. 170 lakh 80,000 crores currency supply is there by April 24. 170 lakh 80,000 crore currency supply, that is M3 in India by April 24th, according to Reserve Bank of India report. 8 to 9% of the currency supply is this 20 lakh crores. And this is roughly 70% of the union budget for 2021. The total expenditure in union budget 30.42 lakh crores. But now 20 lakh crores, in the sense roughly it is 68%. Unless the government initiate measures to increase the supply in addition to demand, these measures actually, the bailout packages definitely increase the demand, definitely infuse the demand in the economy. But at the same time, we need the supply also. So it has to fill the gaps in supply chain and increase the supply. Thereby, if it is able to balance the demand and also supply, our economy will prosper in near future. But finally, what I can say, difficult days are ahead. But with commitment, we are known for, Indians are known for commitment and dedication. So with commitment and dedication, it is possible to come out of this corona problem, and also we can see a bright future in near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent overview on the economic front post COVID-19. Here are some questions from the participants, sir.
Yes, please.
Dr. Seema Ghosh from Brahmans Vivekananda College, sir, is asking, Government of India package for revival of the Indian economy and how this package is going to address the problems of migrant laborers.
So far, regarding migrant laborers, yesterday, Finance Minister did not say anything. She stated that from yesterday onwards, for the next 2 weeks, she will conduct press meets and announce their bailout packages related to different sectors, different stakeholders. Yesterday, she did not say anything about migrant workers.
Thank you, sir.
You have to wait and see. For the next 2 weeks, you have to watch the press meets of our Honorable Finance Minister.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. This question is from Dr. Uma Jayendar from Bhavans College. Government has agreed for disbursement of loans without collateral. Will the government be able to bear the default in the given scenario of mounting NPAs?
Repeat the question, please.
Government has agreed for disbursement of loans without. Will the government be able to bear the default in the given scenario of mounting NPAs?
Yeah, this is a problem actually. If there is no collateral, you may not get back. You may not get back. Even if there is collateral also, we have seen so many cases, lakhs of crores of NPAs. So this is a problem that government has to take into account. But the aim of the government is to see the flow of liquidity in the hands of the investors in order to activate economic activity. We should not find fault with the government because this juncture is this kind of bold step also.
Yes. Thank you, sir. This question is from Sajida Khatun from Kasturba Gandhi College for Women. In what is the COVID-19 lockdown effect on banks in India, and what are the consequences customers of the bank will be facing in future?
Yeah, banks actually not closed their operations. Maybe instead of 5 days, they worked for 4 days, or instead of 8 hours, they worked for 6 days. They conducted their operations, and customers also shifted their pattern towards online banking. And as far as I know, there is no effect of this lockdown or corona on banking operations and banking business.
This question is from Sailaja Madam. What is the effect of COVID-19 on IT companies, sir?
Yeah, IT companies already stated they shifted to online home, work from home. Most of the companies shifted from work from home, but The thing is, actually, you may expect some structural changes in the office operations. Structural changes in the sense, now I've seen in newspapers some of the companies actually adjusting their workspace by giving some space between the chairs. In the sense, now instead of 3 members there, you can see in one room 2 members only by leaving the middle chair, etc. They are already started these things in order to face the eventuality. Now they are working with 33%. From yesterday onwards, they are working with 33% staff, but there won't be any significant effect on particularly software services.
Yes. One more question, sir. This question is from Dr. Uma Jayender from Bhavan's College. Government has announced collateral-free loans. Won't it affect the already mounting NPAs of the banks?
Yes, up to 20,000 crores it seems. Up to 20,000 crores. Government announced 20,000 crores towards helping the companies, companies or the investors facing the problem of NPS. But what I mean to say, this without collateral or helping these companies actually which are in bad shape, not good, strictly speaking. But in the present condition, it is a must because the MSMEs are on deathbed actually. Now you have to extend helping hand, expecting that in near future they will recover and pay back. That is only optimism.
So one more question, sir. This question is from Professor Maheshwari. Is it the right time to build up migrant laborers' data, starting from state to ward level, to enable the government to strengthen?
Repeat, madam. Is it?
Is it the right time to build up migrant laborers' data, starting from state to ward level, to enable the government to strengthen the HR force in the policy making? Repeat,
madam. I couldn't follow this.
Is it the right time to build up migrant laborers' data?
Right time to bring back.
Build up, sir. BUILD. Build up migrant. Yeah. Build up migrant laborers' data, starting from state to ward level, to enable the government to strengthen the HR force and in policy making.
Yeah, it is necessary now. Even the specialists in labor economics or the government also fail to estimate properly the intensity or strength of the migrant workers. Now everybody is surprised when lakhs of people started moving from urban areas to rural areas. Then they came to the realization, what is this the extent of migrant workforce interstate actually? Interstate in the sense mostly from North India. So now there is a need for having database.
So one more
and
question.
Government also will initiate measures.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Dr. Uma Jayender, madam. Government has announced collateral-free loans. Won't it affect the already mounting NPAs of the banks?
Yeah, this is related question already answered. Yes, there is a need. Even though there are NPAs with the industrial units in MSMEs, there is a need. This juncture, the present juncture requires this kind of bold step by the government. You have to help them out. Of course, there is a danger. There is a danger also. They may, in due course of time, they may turn into defaulters. That danger is there. But anyhow, you have to extend, you have to take the risk.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Sumitra Pujari from St. Joseph's College. What measures should have been taken by the banking sector to reduce NPAs?
To reduce NPAs. It is a strict supervision. Say, there is a big debate, and you can say, we need actually banking supervision. Strict supervision is a must. Even though there is strict supervision, the basic reason for increasing or mounting volume of this NPS is collusion between political leaders and the bank officials at higher levels. Unless you cut off this collusion, it is not possible to see any reduction in NPS in this country.
Last question, sir. This is from Kavali Rangaya. What is the effect of COVID-19 on industrial sector?
Already explained. COVID-19 and industrial sector, actually we imposed a lockdown, yes. And after that it is not possible to COVID-19 in the sense even industrial sector also you cannot use the workforce as you have used earlier. So this COVID-19 actually affected the industrial sector in a significant manner.
Sir, one more question.
Initiate measures.
Thank you so much, sir. One more question from Indira Priyadarshini Madam from Kasturba Gandhi College. What is the status of on-campus and off-campus recruitments? Are the companies interested in hiring new recruits?
Now they may think twice. They may think twice for going for this recruitment. Recruitment, particularly if you take into account not only software educational institutions or universities, they may think twice to go for recruitment, because now they think it is better to conduct online classes by appointing one or two rather than going for hundreds. So there is a chance, there is a possibility.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions.
Sir, there is a few more questions from the participants. Sir, can you take it? It's just one or two questions more.
Yes,
they are
no
asking, how long will it take for Indian economy to revive after lockdown?
That's say how long, in the sense nobody can say right now. How long the corona effect will continue? First, one has to answer that. Nobody can answer. Even the scientists or doctors cannot answer that question. How long? When you are going to eliminate? No, it is not possible. I cannot answer. Actually, doctors has to answer this question. How long the corona will continue? Because it is related to a medical field. And so far, medicine not they have not developed any medicine. Research is going on. Simply they are using hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin on a trial and error base. Now once the doctors or the scientists invent the medicine, and then only we can say, after that only the corona will be wiped out, and then the economies will continue. But right now I cannot say how long the economy will take to survive. I cannot say. I always believe in uncertainty. There is uncertainty.
So there's one more. Effect of COVID-19 on taxpayers and GST.
Taxpayers and
GST, sir. GST.
Yeah, online they can pay taxpayers. Government also may give some concessions for filing of the returns online. But the only thing is, as a result of corona and lockdown, government suffered a lot in terms of tax revenue. Loss of tax revenue to the government. But people, business people or GST, whoever want to submit or file their returns, they can submit the returns. Maybe government also may give some time relaxation.
Okay, so the status of employment opportunities in affected sectors.
Yeah, there is a danger. Now everybody want to reduce because lack of demand, low level of economic activity in industrial sector. So as a result, they may not go for recruiting in full swing. They may want to continue the operations with one or two people, because if there is no demand for commodities, as a business person, they won't go for recruiting the people on a large scale.
Thank you, sir.
So, but I am optimistic. In due course of time, we may, in the sense the demand may increase, the corona also may be wiped out, and then the economy will prosper. I am very optimistic.
Yes, sir. So one more question is about the future of sports field when there is no physical distancing. Physical distancing has to be maintained. So what will going to be the future of sports?
As long as corona effect is there, you cannot think of any sports. Because there, congregation groups, maybe teams may be there, and spectators, all those, they never allow. Now, if you want to play a game, for example, you can play your game, table tennis or something, just at your home only, not outside.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, one and all.
You can start.
For giving me this opportunity also. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sunanda, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Now I take the privilege in calling Sunanda ma'am, our IQAC coordinator, to express her vote of thanks. Over to Sunanda ma'am.
Ma'am, be a bit
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Thank you, Vani. Good afternoon, one and all. On behalf of our college, management, principal, vice principal, faculty and staff, I, Sunanda Gite, IQAC coordinator and the Department of Community Science, feel honored to propose vote of thanks to all the esteemed guests who are part of this event, a first of its kind of our college. I sincerely thank the speaker for the day, Dr. A. Nakula Reddy Sir, Professor, Department of Economics, Usmania University, for accepting the invitation in spite of his busy schedule. I thank you, sir, for giving us clarity by introspecting the challenges and opportunities of Indian economy sector-wise. It was very informative, sir. Now we see the need to be Atmanirbhar, sir. I also take this opportunity to thank all the participants because of whom the event has been a success. I thank the management, Principal Dr. P. Sunita ma'am, Vice Principal Dr. R. Rashri ma'am for giving us this opportunity of conducting the webinar. I extend my special thanks to our Vice Principal Dr. R. Rashri madam for initiation of idea, continuous guidance and support from the day one. I also thank Dr. E. Dhanlakshmi, Head Department of Economics for coming up with the theme of this webinar. Last but not least, I thank the organization team and in particular my colleagues and friends Ms. Mangawani and Ms. Dhanlakshmi for their continuous cooperation in order to make this event a grand success. Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you, Vani. Over to Vani now.
Thank you, madam. Now I request the participants to fill the feedback form before leaving. Those who fill the feedback form and submit it will be getting their certificates, and the certificates will be issued to them in a week's time. The address of that is shown. The link of that is shown on the slide as well as in the chat box. Please look in the chat box also. The link is in the slide as well as in the chat box. Please fill the form. I request all the participants to fill the feedback form.
Vani ma'am,
Can you?
no, Vani ma'am, stop sharing it, please.
Yeah.
Participants, the links is provided in the chat window.
Please click on the link and fill the form. We thank one and all who has participated for today's event. We keep this feedback form open for another half an hour. Please fill the form. And if any participant has any issues regarding the certificate, please mail us at kgcwwebinar@gmail.com. I thank one and all. We are leaving the meeting.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you
Okay,
so
Thank you,
much,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Okay, madam. Thank you. Close
Will
చేయాలా?
Sir,
Yes,
Johnny
sir.
back on the.
చేసుకోండి, sir.
Dhanlakshmi garu.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Ma'am, where we can get the link, ma'am? Feedback form I'm not able to get.
It is in the chat window, madam.
Chat window.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah,
again.
madam. https://form/gle/4. Can you see, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, in the chat window to your right.
Can you? Hello?
Chat window. Chat window. Okay.
Enable your chat window, madam.
Okay. Okay. In that.
In that, at the end, you have the link from Vidya V.
Vidyavi.
Okay. It is saying it is a hyperlink, madam. You can just click on that.
Only the message to type.
Vidya, madam, once again, you paste the link, madam.
HTTPS.
Ma'am, now you can see?
Yes. Yes. I think yes.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. निकाल दियो
डालते नहीं रे रहता वो ऊपर चले जाता हूँ तो बात कुछ स्टार्ट आता
Vidya,
Yeah, ma'am.
are there? I mean, you have muted all participants.
Yeah, ma'am. I've muted all participants.
हम लोग बात कर सकते हैं.
No.
There are still 40 participants online.
No, madam.
అదే చూస్తున్నాను.
No, no.
ఉన్నారు
There are 40 participants.
yes ఉన్నారు 40 ఉన్నారు. అంటే మ్యూట్ లో ఉన్నారు. They can hear us.
Yeah, ma'am.
They can hear.
Okay, no problem. Shall
your opinion.
Somebody already received the certificate, Vidya.
Yeah, ma'am.
wow, congrats Vani. Vidya and Vani.
Yeah, ma'am.
Certificate
Thank you.
అసలు అలా సర్టిఫికెట్ అయితే good.
If one of you can fill it up and check, we are also supposed to fill the feedback form.
Yeah, I have to fill. We have to fill.
I'll do it after this session.
डाल देना चल निकाला प्रश्न है
Down is very far.
ఇప్పుడు పెట్టుకోవచ్చు పండు ఇదట అది ఇటు పెట్టుకోవచ్చు
We hope all participants are able to click the link and fill the form. Vidya,
Yeah, ma'am.
can you just tell if there any difficulty for the participants?
No, ma'am. So far, no message.
There are a few more who any problem with the link or something?
No, ma'am. People are able to get the certificate too.
Okay.
Vidya, I too got the certificate.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Huh?
Thank you. Yeah.
ఏంటి వాణి
సర్టిఫికేట్ వచ్చింది.
ఏదో అన్నా వాణి?
సర్టిఫికేట్ జనరేట్ అయిందండి.
ఓకే 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 చలో. నేను ఫిల్ చేయలేదు ఇంకా, చేస్తా.
టెస్టింగ్ కోసం చేసాను, వచ్చింది.
ఓకే ఓకే చలో.
If the participants have done with their work, they can leave the meeting.
We'll be continuing it for a few minutes.
Madam?
Yes, madam. Any doubt, madam?
When can we get certificates? When I have completed filling the form, when can we get certificates?
Sir, it is automatically generating. Sir, a few of the participants have already got the certificate. You will be also getting to your mail ID.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
You can always contact back to the webinar, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes,
hello.
madam.
Hello.
Madam, చెప్పండి మేడం.
Hello. Ma'am, feedback link open అవ్వట్లేదు.
మేడం అవుతుంది మేడం, అందరు ఫిల్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఈవెన్ వాళ్ళకి సర్టిఫికెట్స్ కూడా వచ్చాయి.
హలో,
మీరు ఒక్కసారి మళ్ళీ క్లిక్ చేయండి మ్యామ్ ఆ లింక్ మీద ప్రాపర్ గా.
ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళీ పెట్టాను.
ప్లీజ్ ఐ మీన్ ఫీడ్బ్యాక్. హలో
మేడం, మీ వాయిస్ చాలా బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది మేడం.